has no escape. From this waking dream, no hope for death. You see, the mortal core is sending up the spring. Unwind, too slow, too quick, too much to believe. You fail the test, forging all new policies, creating a mess direct. Through this brick machine with all of the rest, BC, dying, electricity.
Hello, hi, welcome. So, today we are trying out a different kind of stream. So, I may have mentioned this in a few previous streams, or if you follow me or anything, is that I am a bit of an MMO addict. In that I've been playing most MMOs since they were a thing. Every MMO I usually try out at least 1 month. I have past addictions to Warcraft, EVE Online, Swords of Galaxies, and probably my favorite current MMO, Final Fantasy 14. So now that I have a new streaming rig and now that I can actually play modern games on stream, I thought maybe I'd try logging into 14 to do kind of my daily stuff and stream a bit, talk about why this is one of my favorite games and why I think it's worth subscribing to every now and then. And if anyone's curious about what I'm going to say end game, because this is not super end game, but kind of what what you do once you've hit max level with a character, and if there are any questions that people have who haven't played this before or are thinking about playing, I'm more than happy to talk about the systems, how they interact, and anything else that comes up. So let's get started. Luckily, the game comes with a built-in jukebox. Well, it's actually built into your housing. The player apartment or guild houses have a jukebox that you can set up, and I've been kind of collecting songs. You can collect songs through quests. You can collect them through dungeon runs. You can collect them through crafting, and so they've been slowly building up. Every song that plays in the game somewhere you can collect as a song, which is actually really interesting. You can actually sample them here. So like what I was actually playing on the intro was just a few. So here's the ones I've collected. There are like 200 at this point. So every dungeon song, every like special event song, now you may be asking yourself, well, who cares about music? It's a video game. Some music is fine, but Final Fantasy music is different at least for me, and I think for a lot of people, in that a lot of it is very well crafted to fit the theme of the dungeon or the overworld or whatever the city it's in, and it's usually very good. And it's also because as we see, there's so much of it, at least in this jukebox. There's such a huge variety of styles. I'm not going to spend the whole stream playing all these songs from my jukebox. That would be a weird stream to do. I may do that at some point. But like, there's some really good. Like you get your generic stuff, and anyway, so it's one element of why so you can actually set this up to play in your apartment, so you can play your playlist while you're doing stuff, or but it's not like EVE Online or other games that have a jukebox in the client that plays wherever you go. This is only in your apartment or in your guild house, so you can hang out and play your favorite tracks. But anyway, that's not what we're here to do. I'm going to go through and kind of do some of my daily stuff, give people a sense of what my daily routine is in Final Fantasy XIV. I am a level 70 Astrologian, which is a healer. Just a brief kind of breakdown of how the classes work in Final Fantasy XIV. There is the standard trinity in MMOs. There's healing, tanking, and doing damage, also known as DPS. What's very unique about 14 and why it's so compelling for me is that you can level up every class, every healer, every tank, every damage, every crafter, every gatherer class on one character. Just one. No alts. No having to blow through the story 20 times to see the content different ways. You can see 100% of the content on one character. And that's to me, that's so compelling for a number of reasons. One, you don't have to go through story stuff over and over again to see what the game is like as a healer, or the game is like as a DPS. And they actually encourage players to try different roles, which is important because if you're a healer, it's important to know what tanks and DPS are dealing with in dungeons, right? Like, it's one thing to go, whoa, man, his health keeps going down a lot. He must be really bad at his job, or he's not paying attention. But being able to switch to a DPS and try and go, oh shit, yeah, this is why this is bad. The other compelling thing is that all the classes play differently, and that's kind of hard to believe that here. My current progress in all the classes. As you see, 70 is the current level cap for the current expansion, Storeblood, and 60 was the cap for the last expansion, Heavensward, and then 50 was the cap for the base game. So you can see kind of where I put time in and where I haven't. Yeah, they all play just a little differently. For example, White Mage is kind of your very basic, not basic, but your standard healing class where you're doing cures and you're, you know, Asuning and, you know, just your basic Final Fantasy, standard Final Fantasy stuff. Not a whole lot of mechanics, but they've also gone through and added mechanics to every class. And I'll briefly just kind of click through these just to kind of get a sense. So this device here in the upper left is the mechanic for each class. So as an astrologian, my whole thing is cards. Basically, I draw a card. It's one of 6 cards. I can either store it, kind of keep it in my pocket for later, draw a new one in 30 seconds, do stuff with those. They give damage buffs and healing buffs and, you know, all sorts of stuff. Whereas if I was playing a, let's switch to a Scholar if I have one unlocked. I do. This may look okay, cool. So whereas I'm a Scholar, I actually haven't unlocked the thing yet. But if I was going to be a Red Mage, for example, which is a damage dealing class, I have this Red Magic, Black Magic gauge that goes up and down based on what I do. If I'm a Black Mage, I have this elemental thing that changes based on what I'm casting. If I'm a Paladin, I don't remember. Do I have a Paladin thing yet? Maybe I haven't hit. You get those when you hit 60 at least. So, but as a ninja, I get. It's not showing right now, but there's like there's a timer that comes. So anyway, long story short, each class plays differently, and they've done a really good job of making them each kind of fun and all very, very relevant and very usable. So I'm just going through my guild house, which is also playing some music. What song is this? This is a bit. Oh, they moved the jukebox over here. They like to hide the jukebox in interesting places sometimes. They've arranged a little chocobo stage here, that's cool. I'll be upstairs. Yeah, whatever it is. Anyway. So, let's get some stuff done. Just kind of demonstrate what the average day is for me when I'm playing this game. Yeah, my main thing is definitely healing. So there are lots of MMOs will have what are called duties. Dailies, which are quests you do once a day to get certain rewards. 14 does this via what are called duties and duty roulettes, which are basically you do a random dungeon of a certain level, you do a random trial, which is like a boss fight, you do a random raid, and you get currency through tomes, which are basically currency used to spend to buy gear. And I'm basically, you know, it's a very similar thing if you've played World of Warcraft, where you're trying to get your level up, and there are definitely multiple ways you can go about chasing that number, right? Like if you want to spend a ton of time, be on the cutting edge of having the highest item level, you can absolutely do that. And the game will basically, it has ways for you to grind out a pretty high item level either through crafting or through dungeon runs. I tend to take a very chill approach to this, and really only chase item levels when I need to for content, because some content's left behind. When they put out new content, it'll be behind in item level sometimes. So I tend not to go super hard, which is to my detriment sometimes, because when a new patch will come out and I'll suddenly not be able to play some of it because I haven't been keeping up to date, which is more on me than the game. So let's, and in addition to that, we have these sort of, it's a little like logbook that you're trying to get seals for. And if you get enough seals, you get rewards, and that also includes doing dungeons. So let's do a max level dungeon. And usually as healer, as you can see, the wait time is non-existent. I'm not going to do too much explaining while I'm playing. It's mostly going to be trying to keep these people alive. Oh, this person has a bad connection already. So. This is a Temple of the Fist, I believe. No, Drowned City. So it's a little more recent than some other ones. I'm just trying to zoom out as much as possible during different fights or dungeon runs, but there's so many mechanics happening, or effects happening, that you want to be able to keep track of everything. Nope, she didn't go. Alright. So yeah, usually when in dungeons where everyone's pretty comfortable, the tank will kind of run ahead and grab a bunch of things. Usually healer can keep up, especially if there's not a ton of high damage things sometimes. Lower level tanks or new tanks can't really do that. But so something that they've done recently that, I forget if it was with Stormblood or if it came afterwards, where it used to be if you're a healer, you had to switch a stance, so they kind of change, toggle between one of two things, to do damage or do healing. And there was a cooldown on that, right? So if you wanted to help out and do damage during a fight, you had 10 seconds where you were bad at healing. You had to kind of sit there and hope for the best. Now, healer damage is directly correlated with how much you can heal. So any stats that modify how well you heal will now modify how much damage you do. So I don't have to swap stances to help out with the fight. There was like these fights on the internet about should healers help out do damage. It's not their job, etc., etc. And my take has always been it's not their job. But if they have a few cooldowns to spend or a few cycles, they should absolutely be putting out damage just to help out. Every little percent absolutely helps out. There's no reason not to. You shouldn't burn all your mana doing so, obviously. But, when possible. Beautiful. Pretty straightforward fight. Only really had to worry about, and at this point I'm not really looking for loot. So, I guess at least at this level. I forget which these guys are from. Oh, that was done. Is it 6 that these sort of 6 or 5? Oh, let's get in there. Good damage with this group. Always open chests. So yeah, so because you can play all the classes, or not all at once. I need to stop looking at it. It also incentivizes you to pay attention to loot during dungeons, right? Because there's a piece of equipment that your current class doesn't use, but one that you want to work on could use in the future. You're further incentivized to maybe roll on that. And of course, as with any, well, not as with any, but lots of another thing to chase in this game, which some people wouldn't care about, some people do, which is what you want, you know, a little variety. With any sort of game like this, there are some people who like to outfit their character in a way that they find appealing, and you can, with some exceptions and some restrictions, but pretty generously, change the appearance of most of your gear to be whatever you want. That's the same armor class, right? Like cloth to cloth, leather to leather, metal to metal, everything. So another reason to keep an eye out for gear is you need the gear that you want to make your stuff look like, or it's called glamoring. Yeah. Some people care about that. I care about it like a little bit. I like to look kind of cool. I'm not obsessing over my appearance and stuff. But, and they've added some features for. There's the glamour dresser, which lets you kind of store them in a. Not have to actually have them in your inventory the whole time. Just a blessing. These things before he finishes his cast. Which is pretty straightforward. It has a, the ones, they've gotten pretty good at making dungeons that have a few things that are compelling for the boss fights. That's what you want. At least that's what I want, right? I would never want a dungeon that's just kill these mobs, have a boss that's a take its bank. Like, I want some interaction. I want some way to deal with the mechanics in interesting ways. Like that there, it turned us into little I forget what they're called, little guides in order for us to drop bombs on the. Obviously, but you shoot the drift. Like it's not just tank and spank and just sit there and do damage. It's I need to use my ability on this thing before it walks over it. If we all don't do that in time, he does a bunch of damage. That's cool. And there are most dungeons that they put out these days the boss fights will have usually one or two interesting characters like that. Just to keep it fresh. My red mate, my... So, yeah, Astrologian Healer is my main. I'd probably like to work on a Black Mage at some point, or maybe a Ninja, because I haven't decided which. Because being a healer, I tend to not be in fights, like, up close and doing stuff. I tend to be spaced away so I get a better look at what's happening. And able to react to templates as they are placed in the ground. But melee class, so there's two flavors of melee. There's magical, well, I guess not one magical, but there's ranged melee. As you would expect, one is up close, one's not. And it's a much different experience being up close because there are different mechanics you have to deal with for different fights. So I like to try and get as much variety as I can. So the tank I'm currently healing is a Dark Knight, and they're usually a little more fragile in this, so I'm pretty impressed that I haven't worked hard. Another element of why I heal is there's an OCD element to keeping the bar filled for me. It's not only do I like being useful and in a support role, which I tend to play in MMOs. It's gotta keep everything nice and tight. You gotta keep those bars filled. I don't know that it's a legitimate reason, but it's a reason. Save the damage for the next encounter. I didn't mean to cast that on the tank. I thought I was storing it. Dark Knight has attack faster. So this guy's a workout. In that you need to pay attention to not just the templates he's putting on the ground, which is many, are many, and then his messages. Raising his claws means you need to work his front. the samurai. Oops, see, I'm not paying attention. He's raising his tail. So this effect means you need to be as far away from the center as possible. The closer you are to the center, the more damage you will take. And there are some templates that are pretty universal. As with any modern MMO, so and that eye that comes up means that you need to face away or you'll do damage by it. But this is kind of a fun one that obviously you want to be. Basically, don't be where there's colors and you'll be fine. But they play with that in a couple of interesting ways. I wasn't paying attention there, and there's no template for this, but he just does a huge laser beam right in front of him when he's trying to make up. So if you're not actually watching what he's doing, you get very sad. Let's do a full draw. Try to place this. Sure. Yeah, it's fun for me at least, or whether it's interesting. When these mechanics tie together that influence your choices as a party member, and that's the dungeon. Pretty straightforward. Especially now that everyone's tank did a good job, giving them a recommendation or a combination. There's some interesting looking pants, but I'll pass on those. Little evo. Off we go. So, we got a combination. Usually I get a combination or two because I think I'm a decent healer, and that is usually appreciated. So what that did is we completed that. We got a bunch of currency and the tomestones. And then because that was a level 70 dungeon, there's this Wondrous Tales system that as you do things on this grid, you get a random seal on this grid. And if you line up 1, 2, or 3 lines, you get to pick one of these rewards. So it's a fun, further encouragement for you to do a variety of content. At the very least, if you just do all 9, regardless of lines, you get study. You get some stuff. Then if you get lucky, you get some better stuff. And obviously, it's a little uncomfortable sometimes to be, one seal short of some lines, and then just being random, you don't get it, and you kind of feel bad. But they didn't have to do this, so we locked it in. Our seal is down there. Okay, so we have some options for some lines. And then, so you can also spend, I should unpack the whole system. This actually happens, this resets every 2 weeks, so I don't have to do it all this week. But they give you some tools to kind of reset these by spending second chance points, which you get if you're in a dungeon with someone who's doing it for the first time. So let's head to town. More accurately, what the there are three main city states, which are kind of the hub cities of the game. and then there's one hub city for each expansion. It's not really important what they're called, but they each have their own style and layout and stuff. So, but basically each one will have the tools you need to get to do what you need to do. So, retainers are very interesting. Very interesting. They are a very unique way to do some kind of MMO mechanics. So you have excuse me, you have a fleet or a handful of retainers. You start with 2. You can pay an extra $1 a month to have a third, which I do because I'm a hoarder. And they do a couple of things. First, they hold stuff for you, up to 175 items per retainer, which is they're your bank, they're your personal bank, and then they are also through how you sell stuff in the game on the market. So if I wanted to sell this materia, I would do it through. I would give it to this retainer, and she would sell it. And then basically I would go back and say if she sold stuff, I would take the money from her and put it in my pocket, basically. The other thing they do is they do little quests on their own, which are called ventures. And ventures can be them going... So what dictates what ventures they do is what class they are. So you can set your retainers to have their own class. This one's a botanist, so I send her out to go gather stuff, and she levels up, and I equip her with stuff that makes her better at her job, and these are all the same kind of things the same gear that players can wear. So you have basically NPCs that equip player gear that have player classes that on their own go out and bring back stuff. And for example, she brought back 1 mistletoe and some these are just sold for money, basically. And she gained XP. So you basically have them do these. So, but with everything, there's no free rides in any MMO. Is that you need to pay them to do this, and you pay them. I'm not sure how useful it is to explain all this, but it's I don't know. This is more and more feeling like introducing someone to the game. So maybe that's what we'll do. It's just kind of break down the game and what I'm doing, and kind of aim it towards people who haven't really played this or might be interested in playing it, or I'm curious what the hell any of this means. But basically, you give them a currency that you can earn through a myriad of other ways. I just ran out, so I need to go get some more before I can do more adventures. Let's see what my other people have done. So she sold some stuff. She sold 100k gil worth of stuff. What did she sell? Nice. She brought back some pants. These aren't great pants, but you know, I could sell them on the market. I could exchange them for seals, which we'll talk about in a second. I could put them on if I wanted to do any of those classes. I would have a level 60 pair of pants to use, so that's very helpful. And then we have, I think she's a miner, and that she mines things out of from rock. Yeah, she brought me a rock. So, what this does, at least from a gameplay perspective, is that let's go somewhere where people aren't attaching things and crafting things. Is it? Yeah, it's not really because you know certain MMOs. So MMOs are a very interesting beast in terms of respecting the time of the player who's playing it, right? There are good and bad examples of this, and I feel 14 is generally a good example of this. Because there are so many little things to do. Now, it's not a sandbox like Eve or Albion or Ultima was. It's not, it's not. I'm not logging in today and trying to think about what my personal goals are in terms of, do I go ambush people? Do I go work on my industrial empire? It's a more traditional in that you have quests and you're doing levels and you're doing dungeons and stuff. But there's such a very broad and wide amount of things to do. And most of it is very engaging and interesting, even if you've been doing it a lot, because they add more content, they add more ways to interact with it. So retainers being your bank, being how you sell stuff, and they go on their little adventures is an example of how all these pieces kind of fit together. So let's go get more currency to pay them, and this will also let me discuss the another aspect of this. So there are three grand companies, one for each of the major city-states. So you basically sign up to one of these three companies, and it's also it's not a guild. It's its own. It's basically your allegiance to one of these three factions, and you rank up as if you were in their military, right? Like, I'm a first lieutenant, and that's actually the max because all of these up here aren't in yet. I think we got one rank from an expansion recently. So as you do things, you can rank up and get access to equipment and stuff. But how you rank up is what's interesting. So basically, you're churning things in to rank up. And there are some other, just like a hunt system where you can kill three, sets of 3 things and 4 things, and go find name things to kill to rank up. But the core of it is through these seals, and that's the currency of the created company. Well, I didn't grab stuff, that's fine. But you basically get those seals by turning in things you've made or that you find, and they have a list every day that changes of, here are the things that they want today. Like today, here's one of each of the crafting classes stuff, and one of each of the gathering classes stuff, and then stuff you find, like I can turn those pants that my retainer found in right now and get 1,000 seals out of it, and that's actually what I'm going to do. So, and then you can spend those seals on gear for leveling up. They have gear that goes all the way up to 50, I think, is the highest right now. Oh, yeah. Are these all my stuff? Yes. And they've left space in to add more, which they haven't done, but they said they will. So you can, turn in those seals to get gear to help level up a class that you're working on, be it for combat or crafting or gathering. You can turn them in for ingredients for crafting. You can turn them in for furniture. You can turn them in for dance emotes. You can turn them in for minions, which are just pets that are cosmetic. You can turn them in for there's a system that you send like your squadron out. Like there are so many kind of interlocking gears to this game, which is why it's interesting to me. And then you can of course turn them in for ventures, which are the currency that you use to pay your retainers. So let's get I usually get 30 or 40, which encouraged me to come back and check on things. And you can turn them in for buffs to make you to increase your XP while gathering and crafting. You can turn them in, like they're just the vectors for advancement along all the different avenues of the game all kind of bleed into each other. And there are so many ways to get advancement, advancement boosted, access to materials. That it's just very smart. It feels very smart. While we're here, you may notice that this character has a star over their head. If you've ever played Final Fantasy VIII, or you've played Final Fantasy IX to a lesser extent, you may know about Triple Triad, which is basically a card game that you can play with NPCs to get, I think in 8 there were rewards for winning that may included GF, not materia, but whatever you use with your icons or your summons. Here it is. There's a currency called MGP, which is basically Manorville Gold Saucer Points, which basically is anything that is recreational in this game. There are a bunch of mini games. There's a whole place, the Gold Saucer, which is a awesome 7 reference, is tied to this, and these are completely recreational and cosmetic. There's no gameplay boosting. You don't get good gear out of this or any gear. You do it for the fun of it. And the fact that so many people still do this content, still interact with this content, demonstrates that they've thought very hard about this. That in addition to grinding out currency to make your gear better, to get better gear, to do dungeons, there's like a downtime aspect to it, which most, like, I think most MMOs, excuse me, and I say most, like the modern MMO is a very, like, what is a modern MMO? Because there aren't as many coming out as there used to be. But in general, downtime is not really a thing that designers care too much about. They usually try and feed every activity into every other activity to varying degrees of success. But here, the downtime / recreation is for the sake of it. To get, you get more GP, MGP, but that just gets you cosmetic stuff. That's it. There's no massive unlock behind all this. There's no, there's no combat or real game benefit to doing any of this. It's all cosmetic and it's all for fun. So, scattered throughout the land are NPCs that you can play cards with. Triple Triad. And the star means that this NPC has cards that I haven't found yet, because you play them and you can see what cards they have. This one I don't have yet, and it costs the MGP to play them, and you get money back if you win. And there are rules. I won't get deep in the weeds about the rules of Triple Triad. Well, the variants, but big fan that they use the music from 8. Triple Triad's pretty straightforward. It's basically every card has 4 numbers. If you place a card that has a smaller number next to it, it flips. Whoever has the most cards of one color at the end of the round wins the match. Or wins the end of the match. So, and A is the highest. A is an ace. A beats most numbers. And same is a special rule that the numbers match exactly. They can flip other ones. It's a variant. So this is a kind of a grindy thing, because if you win, you won't. That was a draw, but if you win, you won't always get a card from them. So you got to kind of play them multiple times, which is fine for me. I like to play this game a lot. So, and there are tournaments, and we'll see that. Plus me, we'll see that in the saucer shortly. You can see the wins one. Let's try again. Let's get one win and then one win. So, yeah, you can literally just sit here and play cards against, and you can actually see my character in game is playing cards right now with the NPC. Let's get aggro here. Oh, okay. Plus is annoying. especially if you're not paying attention while you're talking about the game you're playing. Which is what's happening here. I usually beat this person on that. Getting it done here. Yeah, and you can of course play against players. There are tournaments that would make sense, but and there are like rules to deciding what cards can go in. You can't have too many rare cards and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so we got a card. It's not the one I wanted, but it's the one insert. Yeah, we already have that one. There's a whole squadron system as well tied to the free company, the Grand Company, which you let's go look at it. Let's just make this a tour of Final Fantasy XIV. While we're here, they added this fairly recently, where you have a bunch of NPCs that you can train up. They can go out and do quests on their own. You can go out and run a dungeon with them, which is actually kind of cool if you're really nervous about trying out a class and you don't want to go play with real people. You can do a dungeon with your NPCs and they level up and you can tell them when to attack. It mostly works pretty well. There's a few mechanics that they don't handle great that you end up dying to, but in general, it's a neat thing. They can go out and bring back all sorts of stuff. It's not worth spending a ton of time on, but suffice it to say, there are lots of things to do. So let's go, just for fun, let's go do a lower level quest, just to show some of the kind of slower paced combat. I have a quest for I think it's Marauder, the very low level. Yeah, Marauder. Okay, let's be Marauder. Oh, you don't have pants on. I don't have pants for this lady. For this class. Let's go put some pants on. I want to walk around in my underwear. I would not have pants for her. Just buy some pants. Buy some pants. Excuse me, sir. I need pants. This is embarrassing, but I lost my pants. So. As if, okay, sure. These pants look great. Okay, well, I mean, they're better than no pants. And really, these are the best shoes I have. I did go through and cull my inventory quite a bit, so it's possible that I got rid of a low level stuff because I wasn't using it. Yeah, let's get some. These are very cheap. Let's see what this is. Okay, I look more like an adventurer with these little kind of hot pants, but that's fine. Gloves are also. Stand by as I adorn my character with level 9 gear. That looks real good. And then there's a. So there are some goofy things like this is Square Enix and they like to freely play in their back catalog of materials. So. But that shouldn't be a surprise to anyone who's played any Final Fantasy games, to be honest, that there's an aura of goofy, tongue-in-cheek, I think it might be armoire, actually, to the game, right? Like, there are noodles aplenty here, there are there's Ramua. There's all your favorite summons are in here in various implementations. You can get we'll talk about our Chocobo in a little bit. Yeah, so I'm gonna go get a Moogle hat that that'll hide because it looks silly, but it gives me XP if I'm below 30. Because I want, I want to go a little faster. And I usually have it handy, but I guess I stored it. So yeah, in addition to your bank, you also have this this armoire, which basically lets you store special items like from promotions and events, so they don't take up bank space. We'll show it very briefly. Yep. Okay. Now we're ready to take on this quest. Let's take the long way so we can show off a few things. It's very good about giving you a place to warp to or teleport to. And this shows you where the quest is. These aetherite crystals are where you can teleport to from anywhere in the world. So it doesn't have the grand scale of some MMOs where it takes a long time to get from one place to another. Fast travel is very much a thing here. I haven't used Marauder in so long that I have some abilities that are no longer valid for this class because they change these up every expansion. So let's ditch the things I can't use. Really briefly check if we're not missing anything. You can use Rampart. Yeah, they changed. So, also interesting is tying into how everything kind of blends into one another in terms of the classes. It used to be that certain classes could share skills with other classes. They've kind of abstracted that now to where every class has access to these pool of abilities that you can add on in addition to your own abilities. So this pool is, 13 big right now, and I can have 10 total. I think this actually gets bigger with other stuff. So it further allows you to kind of customize what your class does. That's a good rampart on our bar here. So what we're going to do is let's go do this basic little quest, and we'll do that by getting on my Chocobo. So, Chocobos are, you get your Chocobo through your Grand Company, which is one of the three factions that you pledge to. That, and you can change that. They're pretty easygoing. Well, there's actually a delay, but yeah, it's not too hard to change your Grand Company. What's also interesting is that it's not just a mount. There are mounts that that's all they do. But they can also act as a companion. And if you don't have a party, you can have your Chocobo fight alongside you. And this is a very low level. This is like a starting level area, so it should be pretty relaxed. This is not a bullet I can use. So your Chocobo can be one of the three Trinity classes. It has a little skill tree. You can dress it up with Chocobo specific stuff. You can, through a very complicated system, dye it by feeding it different fruits of different colors over time, and it slowly gets there's like an RGB thing where you're feeding it red fruits and then you stop and you feed it a few blue fruits and you stop, and it's perhaps a little needlessly complicated, but still cool. So let's actually have our chocobo join us, and you do that with, of course you would, with the Geisel greens, which everyone knows chocobos love to eat. And it arrives, and it'll be with you for half an hour of being out, and you can put him away, and that time won't take. So this is Charles. This is my chocobo, and while we're here, we'll explain the fate system. So as you're out and about in the overworld, these blue circle fates come up that tick down slowly. They're basically like little mini quests that you can work on. It's like a public quest basically. This one is basically just to kill toads. And then you'll see the bar fill up over here, and you'll get XP and sometimes gold based off of your participation. And you can kind of chain into them. Kill them or others. Got a nice weakness to the abilities. My chocobo is currently a healer. I'm gonna have to do what he wants. So yeah, and then there's a moderate XP bonus for doing it. That's the thing. MMO things drop items when they die. You don't have to loot or like gather from them. They just drop into your inventory. You don't. So that's nice. Even on the early levels, so what they've gotten pretty good at is trying to teach players the mechanics that they'll need in the later part of the game. Through, so we got some XP, a little bit of money, and some seals, which as we learned can be used for all sorts of stuff. So let's do this quest. Every class. Every job, basically, every class/job, has their own quest chain. So the 9, 12, 15 classes all have their own quest chain that takes you from 1 to max level. You can't necessarily just do those to get XP points, experience points, but they're unique. That's how you get certain equipment, that's how you get certain skills. You basically need to do that, and it's very cool because those are all, for the most part, they're all very different and written very differently, and they engage you with the different city states. You get to know certain characters because you kind of interact with them, like major characters that you'll see later on. So the Marauder, which is the class I am now, has me killing Megalo crabs. I've had this in my quest log for years at this point because this is a very low level quest. But I'm wearing oven gloves. Also, it looks really, really good. It's always very satisfying to hop in and kind of roam the landscape. So there'll be occasionally these little instances that are kind of private fights that there's between you and the encounter. Nice shot of the butt. So yeah, so it's cool that I can go from a not max level, a max level fairly high end healer to doing level 8 missions on a Marauder, just as I choose to. You know, if you want like a change of pace, you're tired of healing, you're tired of doing dungeons, you want to do some quests. It's nice to be able to change it up, right? You don't want to burn out. Smaller guys that keep coming in here. So the cooldown rate has always been kind of a sticking point for some people for this game. It's a little slower than... I think it's slower than WoW usually. That's their complaint, is that it feels slower, like the cooldown until you can do your next ability is slower than I think people expect. But it makes it more deliberate. So you're not spamming stuff as much as you would in a game that has a higher rate. And most classes will have some degree of this kind of combo system, where you do one thing, you'll see the skill is kind of highlighted. It will, you know, chain into a different ability that does more damage, or will add an effect, or do a thing. And most classes will have that. They'll have that kind of chaining / combo system for most of their abilities, which just as a core thing. It's not a special mechanic or anything. It's just. But some classes, like the ninja, is one that comes to mind, and now samurai. There's like a pretty complicated tree of like, you start here, you have 2 options. You take those 2; those have 2 options. So that it really lets you, as you learn the class, it lets you kind of pick and choose, kind of like climb that tree to the recipe of the action you want to take, and they all do damage as you go up for those classes. So. So yeah, this is a level 8, 6 level quest. So we're just killing crats for the locals now. We're not dealing with global politics or giant summons or anything yet. But it's nice to stay grounded. So in addition to being able to play as any class at any time, you can also queue up for dungeons and raids and any of that content that's beneath your level. So it's very easy to play with friends. Like, let's say, for example, I had... Well, and that's also, you know, where the multi-class thing comes in handy. If you're playing with a friend who's like level 20 and you're level 50, you might have a level 20 class or one that's close to it that you can work on, that you can group up with. You could also just queue up in a dungeon with them. If I'm level 70 and my buddy's level 20, I could queue up to a level 20 dungeon as the healer. It'll sync me down and adjust my stats so I match. I won't get any XP because I'm max level, but if I wasn't, I'd still get XP at the same at the correct rate that my class would. Let's start over. So if I'm like level 50 and I'm with my level 20 and we're in a dungeon that's like a level 20 dungeon, I'll get XP at the correct rate for a level 50. Well, he'll get XP for level 20, so we're all kind of getting XP together. I think that's how that works. At the very least, if you... Well, actually, we'll do a dungeon here as a healer dungeon, a lower level dungeon. Let's go back to town and turn in this quest. And sure, while we're here, there's also a hunt log, which the base classes have, where you basically go kill 2 things and you get XP for it. And you can do once. That's basically what you do when you first start up with a new class, is to do that and fill out that log. So, also worth noting, as we're breaking down the various parts of this game, there are base classes and there are jobs, which they've kind of gotten away from in the expansions, which is interesting. So, for example, to be a monk, which you see here I don't have unlocked, which is you need to have your pugilist to 50, and then you can unlock the monk class. So there are feeder, they're basically feeder classes. Pugilist, lancer, archer, I forget, is it warrior? Thaumaturge, and something else. So, and these are all base classes that came with the base game. So those will basically let you unlock the full version of that class. For example, the Thaumaturge will lead into the Black Mage. It's a little confusing as to why they did that, because no one would want to play the basic version of the class. They would always want to play the advanced version because it has more skills, it has mechanics, and it's what they're actually trying to play. With the expansions, they took away that, in that you basically just get classes. You do a quest for them. I think as long as you have like a max level character or a certain level character, you just basically get access to that class. And the ones from Heaven's Ward, the Machinist or Machinist, the Astrologian, the one I'm playing, the Dark Knight, all started at 30, which is why you see I have these here at 30, because I haven't worked on those at all. And then the ones from Stormblood, which is the newest expansion, started at 50, which is why my Samurai is 50 and my Red Mage is 50. And there's no other, you don't build up to. So I don't know if they'll go back and smooth that out, because it also looks kind of awkward, right? Like for example, these gloves will work for a conjurer or a white mage, but a conjurer is what you play before you're a white mage. So you would never. It's just it's an extra level of complexity and confusion for new players that I think they want to get rid of. I think it probably could have been done a little more smoothly. It's just confusing, right? Like, why make a class called a conjurer? Make them go up to level 50 where they can then unlock white mage, and then they can just play white mage. I mean, I guess the reasoning is, I think one of the classes actually branches to 2. This is a little fuzzy because I don't play these classes. Scholar and Summoner both come from, I forget the base class. I think that's either Conjurer or, yeah, I forget what it's called. So I think there's one class in which they had you branch off from, which I think is the only reason why you would do that. But it's awkward and clunky. And ultimately, and most importantly, confusing for new players, which you do not want, especially when you have this cool system that lets them play any class they want. You want to make it abundantly clear how they do that, and not keep asking, well, how do I unlock Black Mage? Why am I a Thaumaturge for 40 levels? I'd be the crabs. I am a tactical genius. And then I can pick things, most of which I just bought. Better X then. So yeah, like this is why you do the class quests. They give you XP, they give you a better version of your weapon, they give you gear that, they keep feeding you things you need to keep doing better. I'm not actually wearing that, so I'll get an eye patch. What is this? Oh, that's a scholar job. Interesting that it's here. in the Marauders Guild. So they actually do what's interesting about the class quest is they actually do it story-wise. It's actually pretty well done. You usually start off talking to the guild master of whatever base class guild class that you're playing, but they usually ramp it up in a pretty cool way where you're dealing with the kind of the smaller scale politics of the city that you're in. And it usually ends up you being involved in a big fight or a big confrontation or having to rescue someone. But they build the story up as you get higher and higher level, where you start to feel more important. You start to feel that your scope is broadening, and that's very cool. Where you start off as, hey, you're an adventurer, you do stuff, you're like level 5, hey, go kill some crabs. And then like level 50, you need to go help kill a dragon or stop an evil prince or whatever. And then you're regarded in respect to your actual level, which that doesn't happen as much in most MMOs. It gets hard to maintain that with the expansions, and you get level 50, level 60, level 70. That kind of falls away because it's harder to, with the grand, and I won't spoil any story stuff, but because that's also a big part of 14. But as the various world events happen, you kind of get bumped up to the max level, a ceiling of respect for the Warrior of Light, which is the character you're playing. And everyone just kind of reveres you. Oh, you're a Warrior of Light. Not the Warrior of Light, which is also smart. You're not the prophesized one. You are one of literally thousands Warriors of Light, which I always appreciated. And like MMOs that, have you playing quests where there's like, oh, you're the chosen one. Only you can help me defeat this monster. There are like 40 guys who look like you running around. It's like, sure, suspension of disbelief, but it also, it loses a little bit, right? You feel a little disconnect there when you have characters saying, only you can help me, Obi-Wan. You're the only one who has what it takes. And then you're like, yeah, but there's like 80 guys in the city that can also do it. So anyway, yeah, we're not gonna go do this. So this is Linz La Minza, which is a sea and ocean-based kind of city-state. One of the better-looking ones. There's Guidania, which is a kind of forest / nature, and then there's the desert one. I've seen so much of Alamigo from the expansion that I'm misplacing the name. Ulda, or Ulda. Which, maybe I'll do like a tour of Eorzea stream at some point where I just visit all the different regions and show them off. Because that's kind of to me, one of the very appealing things of the game is that there's so many different places to go as you're leveling up through the main game and the expansions. Though I don't know if I would want to spoil that. Like, half the fun is seeing those. I'm also not sure kind of how to stream it, because I don't want to just do dailies every time. This was my first time streaming this. Yeah, I don't know what would be interesting for people to watch. I'm not going to stream doing main quest stuff because that's spoilery, and honestly, you should do that on your own. I don't know. Maybe we'll do some sort of hybrid. If I see someone with a star, I'm going to at least play them once. Oh, he has 2 cards I don't have. Well then. Absolutely. And then maybe we'll cap this off by checking out the golden saucer. And kind of explaining how that works. Swap is a rough one because they randomly take one of your cards and you happen to take one, but I think we'll be just fine. I need one card I don't have yet. Oh, that's... Though, I will say, the rarity limit on Triple Triad decks is kind of a bummer. You can basically have one good card and the rest are just fine. Whereas, first of all, the NPCs usually don't just have, they usually have all good cards. I mean, relatively good cards. So there's not a ton of choice when building your deck. There's some for tournaments and stuff. But... Alright, one more time and then we'll move on. I'm gonna make you guys watch me. Bet we'll try it for hours on end. Oh, yeah, I kind of got... No, I got it there. Alright, oh well. Come back in. And so, yeah, there are achievements. Tons of achievements, basically on the same kind of caliber as World of Warcraft's, where every class has a bunch of achievements. Actually, maybe we'll show off crafting and gathering real quick, and then we'll do Golden Saucer. Yeah, basically, I mean, these aren't particularly revolutionary. Killing X things, doing X quests. There are Beast Tribe quests, which I guess we can talk about at some point. Exploration, you know, seeing all the parts of the map, of every map. Doing different things with your Grand Company, finding certain items, getting a bunch of guild. Just these make sense. It's not going to be surprising. What is actually kind of cool though is they actually recently tied these to what they call certificate system, where if you earn enough, you can turn them in for more cosmetic stuff. So the avenues through which to get cosmetic stuff is always impressive. Like, it actually might be, I don't say too much, but it can be a little overwhelming at first because as you learn that there are more and more ways to get all this stuff, you're like, hey, God, how do I even find all this stuff? But as you expect, there's a very healthy community that has lots of nice tables and wikis and have collated this information together nicely. Let's get back to our normal job here, so we're not in hot pants all the time. Crafting. I'll briefly touch on crafting, just because So, crafting in MMOs, your typical MMOs these days, is usually just here, you know, get the things, press a button, you get the thing it makes. Which is not that engaging, not that interactive. It's basically, do I have the stuff I need to make the thing? I make the thing, whatever. 14 does that, but it makes it a bit more interactive, actually. So let's... my highest crafting class is Culinarian, which... Cook, basically. I am a cook. Hello. So let's make something pretty straightforward. Actually, let's make a thing that we need. So I'll change to Weaver, which is basically a tailor. The Grand Company today wants a blood hempen chest wrap of healing. If I turn that in, I will get a bunch of experience points. So let's do that. Make sure this is... Oh yeah, I want to see if this was said sold or not. I actually put one of these up for sale. I'm not going to grab it, just I want to show off how the crafting works. Yeah, it's still there. So it's probably being undersold right now. Yep. It's fine. Sit there. So, let's make that. Actually, that's a different thing. But it's fine. Anyway, I haven't made this yet, so I'll get a extra bit of XP. I need a silver ingot. So also very handy is that you can search through the inventories of you, your chocobo, your retainers, all with one click to see if you actually have a thing. Like, I have 4 of these pieces of leather in my retainer's inventory. I didn't have to go looking for it. I didn't have to go digging through everything to find it. It's on the 3rd tab even. It tells me exactly where it is. 3rd tab, there it is. Sweet. So, nice and organized, and silver ingot. So, let me get that real quick and then we'll talk about quality. Sure. Alright. So, everything crafted in this game is either normal quality or high quality. And high quality items are marked, if you can see in the tooltip here with the little claw icon. That means it's high quality. Oh, I was on the wrong thing. Oops. About the wrong stuff. But you know what? No, let's go get it. I was wondering why I didn't have it already. So I could go gather these things, but I'll just buy them off the market. Support your small businesses. It's very important. So this, and I'll explain why. Ooh, this might be harder. Like, I could make the cloth to make this cheaper, but I just want to get going here. So the reason, high quality versus normal quality. Higher quality items, as you would expect, are better, but also more importantly, when you're turning them into your grand company, they give more XP. So it's like double XP actually, almost double. So you want to have high quality stuff to turn in. So how this works is there are 2 elements to crafting item. It's durability and it's quality. No, that's not right. Let's start the process and then actually pop that in top of it. It's progress and it's quality. So its quality, as you would imagine, it determines if it's high quality or not. And it actually will tell you right here that I have it currently as is. I have an 11% chance for this to be high quality. So the goal is to finish crafting it and get that number up as high as you can. So you're actually push-pulling 2 bars here. Your progress in the craft and how good it is. And there's a whole array of abilities just for these things. It's actually its own kind of system. It is its own system. I won't get too in the weeds about what this means, but so I'm going to set it up so in general, every step you take, every move you make, you'll be crafting. Every action you do will reduce the durability down by 10. So by default, you have 8 things you can do to try and make this thing. But I have an ability which makes me, for the first 4 steps, it will be half. So it'll be 75, 70, 65, 60. So you have abilities that improve the quality, you have abilities that improve the progress. And you want to push-pull these, and the limiting factor is your CP, your crafting points, the equivalent of your mana, which you have a limited amount of. So you can't just use all the best stuff. And so in general, what I like to do is get a sense of how far I can get with the rapid synthesis, which is a way of... So, and these also have chances as well. You see these have little the success rate, so there's a chance you might not do it correctly. Like this ability has success rate 50, whereas and I have a buff on right now that improves that to 30, so it's improves it by 30, so it's 80%. So it's pretty reliable. Okay, so now I've got this up as far as I need to. Because once you get it all the way up, it completes. So we're going to work on the quality next. Okay. And again, I won't get too in the weeds. There are like combo things. You want to save up a certain number of steps and then cash that in for a big boost. Like I won't get too far in the weeds with that, but the condition here is I will talk about. This is also so you're dealing with a few random elements here. This will change occasionally to good or excellent, and those are moments when you want to do an ability that deals with quality because it will do a bigger amount. So you're trying to keep an eye out for that. Okay. We should be able to get there for this. Oops. Because as you get further up this this bar, this number gets higher faster. It's not exponential. It's kind of it rises towards the end. So we're gonna cash these stacks in. Don't worry about it. That should get us 92%. Okay, that's pretty good. We don't have enough CP to. So we have two actions here. One we need to spend obviously on making the thing. And the other we're going to try and spend on improving quality. So do I do this at 60% chance? I think I take the shot here. 98% chance of a high quality item. We did it. Okay, so we made a high quality blood weapon chest wrap, if you like. So we will go turn this in for a big XP boost for our Weaver and seals. Gathering is. No, we'll go show gathering real quick. Why not? We're already deep in these systems here with this abrupt tour of 14. Here, have this thing I made. Yes. So I get almost 900, well, over 900 XP for it. 900,000 XP for it. And as you saw on my bar, that was like a fourth of my XP. So it's a great way to work on crafting without having to sit there and grind stuff all day if you don't want to, which is kind of what I tend to do. The cost being you need to spend gil to buy the ingredients instead of going out and getting it yourself. But let's go gather something. Let's go do some tree stuff. I'm level 68 botanist, so I'm like fairly close to the high end. So let's go to like the starting area in Stormblood. This is fairly low level. Oh, hey Charles. Where's our closest? In the areas of the last two expansions, there's flying. All your mounts can fly. It's a little different than other MMOs in that you have to unlock flying for each area by doing quests and exploring. But as World of Warcraft has shown, they too also will gate flying pretty heavily by having to do achievements and stuff to unlock flying in new areas. So this is we're in Yangxia, which is a area of the new expansion, the newest expansion. It's not at this point; it's a year old, but Stormblood. So it's a Japanese themed, kind of a classic Japanese theme, kind of a shogun-y, you know. As you can hear, that's what it's going for. It's all right. So gathering is a little more simple than crafting, though not. Yeah, it's a little more simple. There are sparkly things that you are on the ground that once you're. I am currently equipped as a botanist. I have botanist gear on. You click on the thing, and you basically choose what you want to try and gather. I haven't done a lot of botanist stuff, so I have some stuff that I haven't touched yet. So we have the chance to get it, and the chance to get a high quality version of it. And if you've not got it before, it's harder. So, and you have abilities that make it easier to get high quality stuff. You have abilities that make it easier to gather stuff. So let's spend some GP, which is our mana, to make it easier for us to uncover stuff. Okay, that's an eggplant we can get access to now. And once you do it once, then once anywhere, you'll see it everywhere. That was explained poorly, but essentially because I discovered those 4 things, now they're everywhere. Now they're here in every one of these patches. I can now choose to gather parsley, a radish, an eggplant, and then use. And I'm getting XP for all this, as you can see. I can use abilities to try and increase the high quality rate. As you can see here, it's like 754. If I'm trying to farm high quality versions of things for crafting that I'm using, I would do that, spend some time. There's these maps here, which aren't worth getting too into. Basically, gatherer classes can find these maps that you have to go to an area in the world where the X marks the spot, you dig, and there's a chance you can get a chest or access to a dungeon. Don't worry about it. Just one more thing that you can do. So that's gathering. It's not too exciting. Fishing is its own thing. It's also gathering, but it's not. You basically go to any body of water and fish, and there's some abilities there that determine the quality of the fish you get, the size of the fish, blah blah blah. But and there's more mechanics there, but it's not worth getting too deep to. So all right, let's close this out by going to the Golden Saucer. Say goodbye to Charles. Head to the Golden Saucer. So there is, just to kind of close out gathering and crafting, there is a pretty decent player economy here. It's not as robust as Eve or Galaxies or other games, but you can make a living, an in-game living, on crafting. A lot of raiders will need, you can make very high-end gear, very very relevant, very much in demand gear as a crafter that people will pay lots of money for in game. Obviously, to get to that point, it takes its own investment to get your own gear for the crafter to make the good stuff. But once you're there, once you've made the investment of time and money, it can pay off. so this is the Golden Saucer. It's this is all recreational stuff. There's 4 main quadrants. The main reason that I come here every day is for the mini cactopot. And this is basically a little mini game that it's basically a scratch off thing that you spend MGP to earn potentially more MGP. And if you line up the 1, 2, and 3, you get 10,000. It's not always going to be, like this is not going to always, this is, what's that, 1421, yeah, that's what doing that one. You can do it 3 times a day. It's a fun little thing to earn MGP. 10. Always chase that 1, 2, 3. No, okay. You can trade in. I earned a card earlier that I already own a copy of, so we're gonna just turn that into MGP. You can buy packs of cards of the Triple Triad cards. Yeah, there's just a ton of cosmetics that you can spend MGP on. You know, fancy skins for your weapons. Lots of different armor pieces that again you can you know, lots of stuff that, you know, these cost 100,000. I want 300,000. There's mounts that you can get that cost like $1 million, but again, if you work on it slowly, it doesn't matter. You'll get there eventually. This is where all the tournaments take place for Triple Triad. This is where there's Chocobo. I won't show off the other stuff, but there's Chocobo Racing, which is you basically race a Chocobo versus other players, and there's a real-time strategy game in here, which is where you use pets that you've collected to fight other pets. It's not super well implemented, it's a little awkward, no one really plays it, but it's very interesting. That's what they're trying to do. There's these mini games, these kind of carnival games. They're just timing games to try and earn small incremental amounts of MGP. They're cool. Okay. So, and then lastly, kind of connected to that are challenges, which are like achievements, but they reset every week, and they'll give bonuses, XP bonuses, MGP bonuses. Like if I play some more mini games, I can earn a once a week bonus of MGP. So, yeah, that's a very whirlwind run through the systems of Final Fantasy XIV. Let's go back to our apartment and wrap things up here. Obviously, I'm not going deep into everything. Suffice it to say, there are systems that I'm leaving out through which you earn gear. Like I could go on and on and on, but let me just trust me when I say that there is content to enjoy in this game. Let's set this to this symbol. Kind of the classic. This is actually a very beautiful version of this song that they have. Anyway, which is kind of like the core Final Fantasy music, is the one that you get through most of them is some version of this song. Anyway, Final Fantasy XIV. I definitely don't play it all the time, all year round. I definitely dip in when there's new expansions. well, I absolutely dip in when there's expansions. When there's big patches, like 4.3 came out 2 weeks ago, so I've been playing because of that. But it's not a game where, in general, aside from if you're not trying to be a high-end raider, you can feel comfortable dipping in and out of. You don't feel terribly behind. You don't feel out of date. You can work at your own pace and really enjoy the content. Like there's so much to do. And actually, while we're here, we didn't really do too much of this because it's time intensive. But there is a massive amount of story content in this game. That's one of the big draws to 14 is the almost unending amount of fairly well-written story content, and cutscenes, and some of them have voice acting in them. Some of them don't. Most of them don't. Some of them do. The major plot points do. And what's actually very interesting is that once you see all those cutscenes, like the major cutscenes, and this is for everything in the main scenario, which is the main quest for the there's one, like the main scenario is the main quest that all classes do that drives the story of the game, that gets added to with every patch and with every expansion. You can get a summary of every single one of those quests here at this thing that you can buy for your apartment. And you can also replay cutscenes from every single one of those. Like, I'll just randomly pick one and I'll skip it, but it's a little goofy because it shows your character as you're dressed now, not as you were dressed then, because obviously saving that data would be insane. This is Sid, by the way. This is me dressed as I am now. So not only can you get that for the entire main scenario, you can do that for all of the raids, all of the trials, all the side quests, all of the beast quests, all of the beast quests are basically dailies that you can do for the various beast tribes. They're not particularly exciting, but again, more content to do. All the jobs, all the classes, you can get summaries and cutscenes here. Some of the PvP stuff. When they intro each of the dungeons, they have a little cutscene. You can watch that here and get a little story beat for it. Like they care about the story in a way that is unparalleled in an MMO. Whether you like the story or not, that's between you and your opinions. But there is like I said, there's a care and a craft to the story in a game that no MMO has, and that's why this is so appealing to me. Is because they put so much effort in selling you on this world that they spent all this time on all this time building. So if you're watching this, so I think this will be a better thing to watch kind of on demand. So I might present it that way. But if you're looking for more background on how this game came to be, it itself is a very compelling story. This game was released originally. So this game came out. This is the second of this is the second Final Fantasy MMO. The first one is Final Fantasy XI, which is still going, but they basically stopped putting out new content for. So this was intended to. The first version of this came out in 2010, and this was intended to be the high definition, new, modern era MMO, and it did something that rarely happens for Square Enix and their big title games. It bombed terribly. It was a very poorly designed game. It was poorly optimized. It was clunky. It was obtuse, and it was failing rapidly. And Square Enix did something that there's a couple of features on this particular story. I recommend the no clip documentary series on Final Fantasy 14 by Daniel Dwyer. Very cool. He talks to all the players at Square Enix, and it's cool to see them kind of talk so openly about it. But so they basically, what do they do? The reason it's called A Realm Reborn is specifically, when did this happen? Yeah, 20. Okay, yeah. Original 14 came out in 2010. A Realm Reborn came out in 2013. So what they did is they basically threw out the old game. They kept assets and some terrain locations and stuff, but they essentially threw away 80% of the game and put out A Realm Reborn. But in the way in which they did it was very fascinating in that they built a story around this big calamity, and I won't. A, it's not worth getting into, and B, it's a slight spoiler, but it's a not really a spoiler, but it's convoluted as well. So there's basically a story reason why the world kind of reset after a few years, and then everything has kind of branched out of the ashes of that big apocalypse / calamity. And then the game has done very well since then. It was a very successful kind of relaunch and rebranding, and it's just a very cool story. So yeah, watch that documentary. If you want more of a more exhaustive and probably more accurate description of what went down. But yeah, it's one of the few MMOs that I will come back to with regularity with every patch. It's worth $14.99 a month, which is fine. And the expansions are, I think, the standard 30 or 40 when they come out. They're every 2 years, so we'll get one next year. And they'll be adding more jobs and more classes. So there's always gonna be stuff to do. But yeah, it's just their willingness to commit to the story, and their willingness to respect the player's time, and so many games don't do that. And it's refreshing to be able to log in and feel like your time is respected, and that you're not just an ATM machine for the developers. They want you to have a good time. They want you to feel like you have agency in the world. They want you to feel like you're a part of a community, and they want you to have options. They're constantly pushing quality of life updates and weird little experiments like they'll do, and they won't always work. But that's the fact that they're trying is what's important, right? That they'll put out these ways to grind out new gear that are, like, for example, there's and again, I haven't gone through all these things in this stream, but there's a special kind of dungeon where you start out at level 1, and you go from 1 to 70 just within that dungeon, and it gets harder as you get through. And then once you leave the dungeon, you're back to your normal level. And these little experiments like that are still in the game, that they keep adding to and playing with. It's refreshing, and they do it, and they're open about it usually, and they listen to feedback and they respond. So yeah, that's 14. This kind of turned into a tour of Final Fantasy 14 and all of its systems. I don't know if it's the thing I'll keep streaming, because I don't know if it's exciting to see me do my daily stuff, but I definitely might do a kind of a tour of the world for people who aren't going to play the game and who have no intention of going through the content. Maybe I'll walk through or mount through all the different biomes to kind of show, because there's some really cool graphics and aesthetic and art design in this game that I think are worth checking out. And not everyone may get to do that, so maybe this will be a thing for that kind of audience. And I'll think about that. And if anyone that sounds good to anyone, maybe I'll do that. So that's been 14. Yeah. I recommend it if you're willing to put up with some MMO stuff, and if you like Final Fantasy, and there are so many callbacks to the other games in here, it's insane. But that'll do it for the stream. Thanks for hanging out with me and enduring my in-depth system descriptions. I'll be doing. I think I'm going to do a Shadowrun this evening. I'm going to continue my playthrough of Dragonfall. So check that out if that sounds interesting. And thanks for hanging out. Bye.